Hey everyone, it's Joe from XTRFY. I have a pretty exciting video, in my opinion, because I didn't expect to like this headset this much. This is the H1 from a company called XTRFY. XTRFY is a company from Sverige, or Sweden for us English-speaking folk. It's a pretty affordable headset. It's $130 as of the time of this review. So if you go to the XTRFY.com website, I'll have links in the description below. It's 129 bucks. But either way, I use this quite extensively actually for over a month. So I have a lot of exciting things to talk about. And as you can see, it comes with a lot of stuff in the box too. Now this headset was sent to me for review from XTRFY. Massive thanks to them. I requested it though. They didn't reach out to me. So I'm the one who solicited it. I basically explain my channel and what I like to do. I say I provide, my fair and unbiased stuff, measurements, all that stuff. I don't hide products behind things. And I was really happy that they were willing to send one. I requested this per the request of a viewer. So for you folks out there who make requests for different headsets and products, I often see those. I don't always respond. I get a lot of comments lately. Huge thank you for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But I always want to get my hands on as many headsets and products as I can that you're interested in, because it's really cool to see how it compares to the other stuff that's either more mainstream or that we typically cover. So lots of good stuff. Let's dive into the specs. Now the drivers are pretty unique in the H1. They're 60mm drivers, which is on the larger side, one of the largest dynamic driver headphones and headsets I've reviewed. It also has a 35 ohm sensitivity, or 35 ohm impedance, 97 decibel sensitivity rating. That translates to being fairly easy to drive. You can plug this into an Xbox controller or PlayStation controller and still get very loud volumes without any issues. So you don't need to buy a special amplifier. Really important considering the $130 price range. Now it's unique to explain what you get in the box because I haven't seen it, one, at this price range, and two, in this configuration. So the one downer, I'll be honest, don't like the fact that it's a non-detachable cord. I wish it was detachable, but maybe that's what they thought would help keep the reliability up so cords weren't falling out. It's an interesting design. So you have two detachable mics. They're not flip to mute. I'll explain the mics in a moment. This braided cord is kind of like a really thick shoelace type cord. It goes into this little box. Now this little box has the XTRFY logo on it. It has the same metallic faceplate material that you see on the outer edge of the ear cup, so it ties in nicely. A nice large mic mute switch, which is actually pretty easy to do. I didn't find it sticking like I did with the Astro A50. Then on the other side, you get two volume knobs. One of them is the headset volume, which is pretty self-explanatory. The other one is the mic volume, mic sensitivity volume. I haven't seen this in almost any headset that I can recall that have a dedicated mic analog volume on a passive headset, meaning that there's no amplifier or digital signal processing built in. The H1 is marketed towards esports and competitive gaming. At the end of this review, you will know why it's marketed for esports and competitive gaming, but this is a big reason to it, because if you're in an esports environment or you're at a LAN party and you have a lot of people shouting, the microphone's right in front of your mouth because you want it to only pick up you, well, maybe that's too loud for your teammates. So you can turn the sensitivity down here. Your teammates can still hear you because you're shouting into the mic right in front. You're in the zone, but it will help block out some of the other noise around you in a passive manner because the mic sensitivity is lower. Another unique thing about the H1 is the way it's terminated. So you actually have a dedicated mic and headphone jack coming out of the headset. It's not pre-combined, which is really cool because by keeping the signal paths separate, this is going to help reduce crosstalk. A lot of times when you have a headset turned up really loud, because you have a typical 3-pin, which is what this little adapter is here, a 3-pin, or TRRS, shares the ground signal from the headphones, the actual sound, with the ground of the microphone. And by doing that, when you have really high volumes, your friends will tend to hear some of the gain come in through the mic. That is a very common thing with analog headsets, and a reason why wireless or USB headsets tend to perform a little better in that regard. So by keeping this separate, it's going to reduce crosstalk if you can connect it to something that supports it. Thankfully, XTRFY, again at $130, includes a USB DAC. This is more than enough power. It's all you need to operate this headset, and it has a separate microphone and headphone jack. I do wish, again, just to be honest and nitpick, it's not very clearly labeled. It's a very faint black, which in a lot of esports environments, the lighting isn't that great. So you'd probably want to leave this plugged in when you travel if you are using the DAC, because it's not that easy to see. So the cables are fairly, they're labeled pretty clearly. You have this nice little textured logo on both. So you can see that. And then from here, now you have a USB DAC that plugs into a computer, laptop or whatever it may be. This DAC does work on PlayStation, no problem. I checked, so it's UAC1 compliant. So if you're concerned with using a dongle or a DAC on PlayStation, you're good to go with this too. Now, the other thing that XTRFY gives you is an extension cord that preserves the separate microphone and headphone jack. So you have this really long, it's a 2-meter cord, 6.5 feet. You plug both cables in on one side, then you get an extra 6.5 feet on the other. This is really nice if your desktop or your tower or machine is farther away from where you're sitting or playing, because this will reach all the way over to your computer that you're playing on. Or if you're playing across at a couch on a PlayStation, this is going to give you the length that you need in case you want to connect directly to the PlayStation and not the controller. Now, if that isn't enough functionality, XTRFY also includes a jack that combines the both signals, the mic and the sound, into a TRRS combo port. I know some of you might be like, well, what's the point if you just explain crosstalk? Well, some people want to play on a controller and have good sound and use the controller for your sound. And this is really the only way to do it. So this will combine it into one jack. This works on Xbox and PlayStation without any issue whatsoever. It's actually fairly easy to drive, like I said, so the controller can still power it just fine. This is a little bit more unwieldy when you deal with adapters, but thankfully the cable's fairly light, so it doesn't feel much different than if it were just terminated right here. This really doesn't add any weight. This piece right here is fairly light too. Then the content keeps going. They give you 2 flippin' mics on a $130 headset, which is built like a tank. I can't wait to talk about build quality. A Pro mic. The Pro mic has a black mic on the end. Let's just take the foam socks off both. It obviously comes with 2 foam socks. This is gonna help with plosives. So because it's close to your mouth, it breaks up some of the wind. It cuts down on the harsh P's, if you will, coming out of your mouth. The casual mic is gray. The Pro mic is black. I left this label on because they tell you. The casual mic is going to pick up more background noise. It's more natural sounding. It's a higher quality sounding microphone because of that. But if you're in a loud environment or a LAN party, tournament, etc., then the super hypercardioid pickup pattern on this guy is going to reject more of the background noise and have a very narrow pickup signal from your mouth. So it's really important to position this correctly to be able to pick it up. I'm going to show you what it sounds like with the microphones in a moment, but I did want to explain everything that comes in the box because it's quite a bit. So let's talk about build quality and comfort because the wins keep coming. This is a really nice leather pad. You can see the XTRFY logo on the top and it looks really nice. And then if I turn it, this is a really unique headband design too. It's not going to be picked up extremely well on the top-down camera, but you can see those little ridges. That helps alleviate some of the pressure points on your head. I wish the center point of the pad had like a notch that was right dead center instead, because if you're using a headphone hook to hold your headphone, you want to stick to the crease. Otherwise, you're going to put a little dent in the pad. So if you're okay with hanging it like that, that's the spot I would pick. But the pad's extremely comfortable whether you're wearing a hat or not. It's very plush. It's a nice foam pad all the way around. And there's really subtle hints of yellow. The older H1, this came out several years ago originally, and they made some revisions. The older H1 had yellow and black cabling as well. The new one is all black. Continue on with the rest of the build. You have metal forks, like real metal. This is extremely well made. It telescopes in and out, so this can fit very large heads. And then you have the 2 mounting points to the ear cup. So again, it should be fairly durable. I'm not a huge fan of exposed wires, but at least these are a little bit thicker, and I like that they're braided. A lot of times on headsets with exposed cables, you tend to see rubber, and it can be kind of thin. So this should hold up pretty well for long term. Just keep that in mind. You don't want to snag this because that's a weak point of the headset in my opinion. On the outside, monochromatic. There is no flashy RGB, no crazy color scheme. It's one version for all platforms, and it's black and silver, and I think it looks really classy. Its styling is all a matter of preference, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best looking headset at $130 because that's up to you. You might like something different, but I do think it's fairly classy being very monochromatic. It says built on experience right here. So lots of little details. It feels well crafted. These pads are great for the most part. They're leatherette, So they don't breathe as much. They do a good job of blocking noise. I'll compare it to the H6 Pro later in the video so you can know what I'm talking about. But they're all leatherette. It helps reduce some background noise. Again, if you're in a competitive environment, those pads are important. They do get a little bit warm over time, but they are extremely plush. The dimensions are great. I believe it's 65 if I'm not mistaken, or 60. It's roughly, it's going to be hard because these headbands, the ear cups don't swivel, unfortunately. So let's see, yeah, 65 millimeters of height, and I think it's 40 millimeters of width. Closer to 44-ish, 42. I guess it depends how you measure it, but between 42, 44 millimeters of width here. And for glasses, while I'm on that note, for comfort, glasses comfort is excellent. I tried gaming on these for an extended period of time with my thin frames and my thick gun art glasses. And even on the thick ones, this is one of the best under 200 for glasses wearers out there. The pads are just so plush because of that memory foam that I could still get good sound quality. I don't really lose the seal too much because it really conforms around the glass as well. And the clamp force is rather light too. Now the ear cups I mentioned, they don't swivel. Some people, depending on your head shape, may find an issue in case it puts too much pressure front or rear. They have a really minor flex. You could see me doing that just a little. It's so minor I doubt that's even getting picked up, maybe the top down. That doesn't take much force to make it kind of swivel a little bit. So you may not notice anything. It fits my head shape perfectly. I had no pressure front or rear. These are one of the more comfortable headsets I've worn in a while. And they're actually pretty lightweight. So let's turn on the scale and I want to show you what it clocks in at. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's right around 320 to 340 grams. So I'm going to zero this out. So it's 308 grams without the cable there and without the microphone attached. If I would have say a microphone was attached, you're at 322 grams. I think with the cable, it'll hit as high as like 360. Even, I think if I take this off, we'll probably get about 360, but you're going to feel this on you. So yeah, 360 grams. So not a lot of weight there. As far as the pad compression test goes, well, any headset that doesn't swivel is a real challenge to do a pad compression test, but I do like showing these when I can. So look, just the weight of this little piece of plexiglass is already making the pad compress slightly. That's how soft and conforming they are. And you can see when I compress, I hope you can see this. This is a challenge and a half. They compress symmetrically. There's a little bit of give on the outside and the inside. So you shouldn't feel anything around your ear for the most part unless you have really large ears. These are just over 20 millimeters deep, so they're extremely deep. If you like the HyperX feel, sound, comfort, build quality, the alphas, this is similar to that, only more comfortable and deeper. So this is like a better version of a HyperX Cloud, in my opinion.
Okay, so now I'm talking to you on the H1 microphone using the Pro mic. The Pro mic has the best noise rejection. It's designed more for the esports tournament stuff, so it's going to sound a little bit thinner, a little bit colder sounding, and more quiet because, again, it's designed to basically just hear clear enough dialogue for your friends to hear you, but not pick up all the other stuff that's in the room. So it's a very narrow pickup pattern. I'm using an analog connection to my Mac, no editing software whatsoever to the sound. I'm going to start typing on the keyboard so you can hear the background noise. All right, so that's the Pro mic. Let's switch over to the casual. All right, so now I'm talking to you on the casual mic. The casual mic is going to be a little bit louder, like I said, a little bit warmer. It sounds more natural. If you're not in a really loud environment, your friends will appreciate the casual mic more. If you're in an environment where you talk softer, you may just need the casual mic because it's a little bit more sensitive. However, it is going to pick up more background noise, so I'm going to start typing the same sentence basically on my keyboard. So that's the difference in background noise. Now I want to switch over to the DAC so you can hear what the USB DAC sounds like on the same mic, and then let me know what you think. All right, so now I'm talking on the same casual mic, but I'm using the USB DAC built in. I have the sensitivity pretty much maxed out. I feel like the DAC isn't quite as sensitive as straight analog. Again, this might be like an esports thing, so it's not boosting the signal too much, so it could be intentional. But this is what my voice sounds like on the DAC. I'm going to do the background noise stuff just in case the DAC makes a difference, but I believe from what I tested before, it should sound very similar. So it looks like it could be a little bit quieter. I don't know if that's because of the sensitivity being slightly lower than analog, but we'll find out later. Let me know what you think of the mic, though. I think it's actually pretty decent, especially at $130.
All right, so I break my sound review portion into 2 or 3 parts, I guess. The first part is the objective stuff, the scientific measurements, because if you're comparing this to other headsets I reviewed, it's the easiest way to have a direct comparison on how they measure. No BS, no guessing, but then the subjective side is just how I interpret it, what it sounds like to me, and how that impacted my experience for gaming and music. So looking at the measurement, you can see this is a bass cannon. It is loaded with bass. And XTRFY did this intentionally. They basically did it to help with footstep sounds, and they say it goes down to 5 hertz, which when you look at the 20 hertz region not falling it off, and the fact that this has 60 millimeter drivers, I don't know if it really goes down to 5 hertz. You can't hear below 20 hertz anyway, but that sub bass is definitely present. And it's basically a nice flat shelf all the way up to about 140 hertz. It dips dramatically like a cliff into the low mid-range, which is about 350 hertz. It goes all the way back up. I'm kind of tracing this in case you want to pause it at any point. And then you have right about 2.7 kilohertz is the peak before it dips down. And then you kind of have some wonky, unique treble tuning, in my opinion. I'm going to explain what this sounds like in a minute, but I want to show you something, because when you switch to the sound card, the USB DAC, it alters the sound of the headset. It's a pre-tuned DAC for the H1. And you can see here what it's doing. This is without even moving it off my rig. Exact same positioning on my measuring rig. It reduces the sub bass. There's a lot more roll off down here. There's a little bit more of a boost in the mid bass, if you will, right about 140 hertz. It dips down even further when you get to that like 350 to 450 hertz range. There's a nice valley down there. It picks back up, and there's actually a little bit more treble energy up top on top of it. And some people who look at graphs a lot and they know measurements, this is going to seem like a really bright sounding headset. However, the most sensitive spot for headsets for people and frequency is between the whole 3 and 4 kilohertz range. You have like a lot of ear gain closer to 4 kilohertz, your pinna gain, if you will. So having a dark spot there actually makes the headset not sound overly bright or sharp. And surprisingly, depending on your hearing, in some things it's not too fatiguing. More for games. This is noticeable for music. But that's how it measured. I want to get into the subjective stuff so I can put the laptop away. I just wanted to show you how it measures. On that note, I did want to show you actually how the H6 Pro, the EPOS H6 Pro, I'm going to do a direct comparison to that in a moment. But look at the H6 Pro tuning. You talk about thunderous bass. People ask me what's the best headset for movies. If you want insane, thumpy, deep bass, the H6 Pro close back has a lot of it. The open back is much more neutral. And then there's a massive peak at the 2.83 kilohertz region, which some people can find a little overbearing. They can be sensitive there. This is a very dramatic rise where the H1 is a lot more gradual. So in some cases, it'll actually sound better and more natural. So now we transition into subjective sound quality. My opinion, which is not end all be all. Please keep in mind everyone can have their own opinion. Some people want more bass or less, more treble or less. Some people just can't hear the extra treble because your hearing is damaged. So you're going to want different sound profiles. As you saw on the objective side when I did all the measurements, this is a very bass forward headset. So from my own experience, this is extremely well tuned for Valorant and Apex. So if you play a lot of first person shooters that are not bass heavy, this is tuned exceptionally well for that. Again, this is an esports competitive branded headset. So I hope it would have excelled there. And it does for the most part. However, if you're playing Call of Duty or Battlefield, those have a lot more sub bass in the audio mix, like nonstop rumblings and things to help with immersion. And when that happens, because this is already boosted, you get so much bass on explosions that it can drown out footsteps. The DAC cuts a lot of that out, which helps a lot. So if you can't do any custom EQ, this DAC is great. If you can do a custom EQ, here's the EQ on the screen now. This is a Dolby Atmos tune because if you're playing on Xbox or PC, it's close enough so you can benefit from that. So just pause it for a moment, take a look at it. Hopefully it helps you get some of a baseline tune, then adjust from there. If you're on PlayStation, obviously you can't do custom EQ. However, you can utilize the DAC unlike Xbox players. So just use the DAC. It's going to fix a lot of the stuff that was going on in the bass that hurt me for Call of Duty. As far as imaging and soundstage goes, the soundstage is a little lackluster. It's a bass-heavy headset with a closed back baffled design. They're larger drivers. The way it's tuned isn't designed to give you the best possible soundstage. It's a hyper-focused imaging headset for esports. So you can pinpoint footsteps extremely well on this. And even though you don't necessarily have the same depth of space for understanding where the sounds are coming from, you can still know the direction they're coming from, which is critically important for esports. Imaging, they knocked it out of the park. Again, I don't think there's many that have this level of imaging performance under 200, especially if you need a closeback. They really kick butt when it comes to pinpointing things. So huge kudos there. I think the imaging is awesome. Now going back to the whole boosted, bloated bass, if you will, if you like that pounding bass, great. But on single player games where people are concerned with immersion, open world, that type of stuff, this sound profile is actually really good for that. It's a lot of fun to have that depth of bass and rumbling and effect. So you may not need to do any EQ. I provide my reviews to be as unbiased and honest as possible. What I do want to drive home, though, is you, again, may like something different. So just plug them in and play on them for a while. See what you think without doing any EQ. Always use them for a while. Don't assume that you have to EQ first. And then go from there and see if you like it. I can tell you that the way it's tuned for me was almost perfect for first-person shooter. I just removed some of the sub bass, and that made the headset a better performer for me. As far as comfort goes, this is about as good as a closed-back, all leatherette headset can go. It helps that it has huge ear cups, so I can wear it for long periods of time, but your ears are going to get warm. There's no way around that. Luckily, XTRFY offers replacement pads for only $15 on their website. That's dirt cheap for pads, especially from first party for their own headset. And that'll actually reduce the bass by default by being an open pad like that. It'll breathe better. You'll lose the noise isolation. So if you're buying this for esports, stick with the stock pad. That's why they ship them that way. If you want to play more at home and you're concerned with very long comfort, just buy the $15 cloth pads. I think even at $145, this plus the pad, it's still an excellent value. Now, there's only one wired headset from 100 to 200 that I would compare this to directly, and that's the EPOS H6PRO closeback. Also a very bass-heavy headset like I showed you in the last objective side when we did some measurements. It has very large ear cups. I can wear this a little bit longer thanks to the hybrid pad that has a mix of some breathable fabric and leather on the outside. Surprisingly excellent passive noise isolation, so this still blocks outside noise really well, just like the H1. They're both really, really close. It depends on the frequency, but they're neck and neck. This is built exceptionally well. I like that it's a flip to mute mic. This microphone is like 100% more sensitive than the H1. Again, esports focused. This is a better at-home mic if you're talking quieter. So if you're not a loudspeaker, you may want to go to the H6PRO closeback just for that reason so people can hear you. Once you put this in right proximity to your mouth, they recommend like 1 to 2 centimeters and that the little hole is facing your mouth. I found the mic to be fine. My friends didn't complain, but I did have to leave that little mic rocker at full volume for people to hear me well. So because this retails for $140 to $160 right now, or sells for $140 to $160 on Amazon, depending on the color, it's actually a fairly close competitor, especially if you were considering the mesh pads. I think for pure FPS, this is so much better than I was expecting that I can't even say there's a clear winner. I actually think these might even have the edge. They just really benefit from EQ by reducing the sub bass to me. For FPS, everything below 60 hertz, cut it down. It seriously is such an insane headset at that price range to do what it does. I think it's a great value there. So that about wraps up the review. This was a long one, even though it's just analog. I had so much to say about this because I think it really caught me off guard. I live streamed with this recently where I was doing some final testing. It's been a really enjoyable headset, and I try not to BS on my reviews, and I'll call out, like I said, the things that I was crazy about and not crazy about. Even though this is a cloth cord, by the way, really no microphonics thanks to where it comes out of the headset, so you don't hear the cord rubbing on your shirt. Some people might be concerned with the fabric. Wasn't an issue for me. I absolutely love the value of these. I think at $130 to $150, this is probably the best, legitimately one of the best competitive esports FPS headsets I've ever used. You obviously have the open back of the Drop PC38X and the EPOS H6PRO open backs for a little bit more. They're great for soundstage and imaging, but not an esports headset. Open backs let all the noise in. Their mics are too sensitive, so again, not good for esports. So they have a different use case. I don't think they directly compare. as far as footsteps awareness goes, being a closed back, this is about as good as it gets for pinpointing stuff until you get all the way up into the big guns like the VZR Model 1. So, which is $350, literally over double the price of this, which is crazy. So, I hope you found this review helpful. I think this is a great product. I'm not going to lie. And I'd love to see it the next one. So don't forget to like and subscribe, turn that bell icon on so you can be notified when the next video drops. Thank you all so much for the support. Honestly, it's been amazing. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video.